You hear the first drops hit your window. Without thinking, you check the weather app. Maybe you cancel your plans. Maybe you decide to stay inside. It feels completely normal. But something strange just happened. Your brain activated a survival program that's been running for nearly 200,000 years. Because rain isn't just weather. For almost every human who ever lived, rain was the force that decided whether they found food, protected their family, kept a fire alive, or survived another week. Today, we've built cities that almost erase rain from everyday life. We drive instead of walk. We wear waterproof clothing. We know tomorrow's forecast before we wake up. Yet your body still reacts to storms as though they matter far more than they should. Scientists are beginning to understand why. And what they've discovered explains that strange feeling you get every time the sky opens up. To understand it, you have to travel back. Not hundreds of years, not thousands, but hundreds of thousands of years. To a world where there were no houses waiting just down the street. By the end of this video, you'll understand why rain still changes your mood, why storms quietly shape the human mind, and why one of the most ordinary experiences in modern life is actually a connection to your evolutionary past. But before we get there, there's something rain gave our ancestors that modern life has almost completely taken away. We'll come back to that. Imagine standing somewhere in East Africa nearly 200,000 years ago. There are no roads, no cities, no roofs, no windows separating you from the sky, only endless grasslands stretching toward the horizon. The air changes first, long before the clouds arrive, long before the rain begins. The wind cools, the birds become quieter, animals begin moving toward shelter. Then something else happens. You smell the earth, that rich, unmistakable scent that appears just before rainfall. Scientists call it petrichor. The term was introduced in 1964 by researchers Isabel Joy Baer and Richard Thomas after they identified the natural oils released from dry soil that create the smell so many of us instantly recognize. What's remarkable isn't simply that the smell exists, it's that humans are extraordinarily sensitive to it. Many evolutionary scientists believe that sensitivity may have helped our ancestors locate fresh water after long periods of drought. Before there were weather forecasts, the earth itself warned them that rain was coming. Every scent mattered. Every shift in the wind mattered. Every silent bird mattered. Your ancestors weren't simply looking at nature. They were reading it. Because missing those signals wasn't inconvenient. It could be the difference between life and death. Rain changed everything. A successful hunt could suddenly fail. Fresh animal tracks could disappear beneath wet ground. Rivers became harder to cross. Cold nights became even colder. One storm could erase an entire day's effort. Today, if rain interrupts dinner, we order food with a few taps on a screen. Back then, rain could decide whether dinner existed at all. Anthropologists studying modern hunter-gatherer communities like the Hadza of Tanzania have observed that rainfall still influences nearly every decision people make. Hunting routes change, camps move, gathering patterns shift. Daily life reorganizes itself around the weather. The technology has changed. Human nature hasn't. And that raises an interesting question. If rain shaped our ancestors for hundreds of thousands of years, why does it still affect us emotionally today? Why do storms make so many people feel calm? Why do they make some people reflective? Why does the world somehow feel quieter when rain begins to fall? For centuries, those questions belonged to poets. Today, they're beginning to interest neuroscientists. But before we answer them, we need to understand what rain threatened more than anything else. Not food, not shelter, fire. It's almost impossible for us to appreciate how precious fire once was. Today, heat comes from a switch. Light comes from a bulb. Food cooks with electricity or gas. Fire has become something we control without thinking. For your ancestors, it was everything. It provided warmth during freezing nights. It kept dangerous animals at a distance. It made food safer to eat. It extended the day long after the sun had disappeared. Anthropologist Richard Wrangham argues that the control of fire didn't simply change human behavior. It changed human evolution itself. Cooking allowed our ancestors to extract more energy from food, supporting larger brains and transforming the way human societies developed. Now imagine spending hours protecting a single flame, searching for dry wood, shielding glowing embers from the wind, carrying those embers from one campsite to another because creating a new fire might not be possible tomorrow. Then dark clouds gather overhead. The first drops begin to fall. Everything you've protected all day is suddenly at risk, and what happened around those fires during storms may have changed humanity forever, but we'll come back to that. First, there's another mystery we have to solve. Why does something as simple as falling rain still have the power to change the way your mind thinks? Now imagine that storm finally arrives. The rain grows heavier. The wind begins to howl. Water seeps into the ground beneath your feet. The fire you've spent hours protecting starts to fade. Today, losing a source of heat is an inconvenience. You can flip a switch, strike a lighter, or press a button. For your ancestors, it could mean a night spent in complete darkness. No warmth, no cooked food, no protection from predators, no light to continue working after sunset. One storm could erase hours of effort in a matter of minutes. That's why fire wasn't just a tool. It was a responsibility. Some archaeologists believe early humans often carried glowing embers from one camp to another, because creating a new fire wasn't always guaranteed. Every member of the group understood its value because everyone depended on it. And strangely enough, rain may have made that fire even more important. Think about what happens when the world outside becomes impossible to travel through. People gather together. Movement slows. Conversation begins. For ancient humans, a storm wasn't just something to survive, it forced them into each other's company. The hunt had to wait. The journey had to stop. For hours, sometimes days, there was only the sound of rain and the people sitting beside the fire. Now think about that for a second. Almost every story you've ever loved was spoken before it was written. Long before books, long before movies, long before the internet. Stories lived in human voices. Anthropologists have long suggested that evenings around the fire became classrooms where knowledge passed from one generation to the next. Children learned where to find water, which plants were poisonous, how animals behaved, and which mistakes could cost someone their life. But stories weren't just practical. They created something even more valuable: shared identity. A group that shared the same stories trusted each other more. Trusted groups survived better. Over thousands of generations, storytelling became one of humanity's greatest survival tools. And rain may have given those stories the time and space to exist. Think about your own life. Some of your deepest conversations probably didn't happen while rushing through a busy day. They happened when everything else slowed down, on long drives, late at night, during storms. That isn't a coincidence. Rain changes attention. Researchers have spent decades studying how natural environments affect the human brain. One of the most influential ideas is Stephen Kaplan's attention restoration theory. His research suggests that nature gently captures our attention instead of demanding it, allowing the parts of the brain responsible for focused thinking to recover from mental fatigue. Later, in 2008, psychologist Mark Berman and his colleagues tested this idea. Participants who walked through natural environments showed significant improvements in memory and attention compared to those who walked through busy city streets. Your brain doesn't treat nature like background scenery. It treats it like home. Rain may amplify that effect. Instead of filling your mind with constant stimulation, steady rainfall removes distractions. The world becomes quieter. Fewer people are outside. Traffic fades into the distance. Even the light changes. Without realizing it, your attention turns inward. Another study led by Mats Alverson in 2010 found that people recovered from stress more quickly when listening to natural sounds, including rainfall, than when exposed to mechanical urban noise. Your nervous system appears to relax when it hears the sounds it evolved with. That doesn't mean rain is magical. It means your brain still recognizes the environment it was designed for. Which raises another question. If storms have always helped us slow down, why do so many of us spend our lives trying to escape them? The answer says something much bigger than rain. It says something about modern life itself. For nearly all of human history, people adjusted themselves to nature. Today, we expect nature to adjust to us. We build climate-controlled homes. We light our nights brighter than the stars. We travel regardless of the season. Rain becomes a minor inconvenience because technology shields us from almost every consequence it once carried. But your biology hasn't changed at the same speed. Your body still notices the falling temperature. Your ears still recognize the rhythm of rainfall. Your brain still shifts into an older pattern of attention. Perhaps that's why a storm can make deadlines seem less important. Why watching rain through a window can feel strangely comforting. Why the world appears to slow down even when the clock keeps moving. The storm isn't changing time, it's changing you. And there's one final piece of this story that makes everything even more fascinating. Because rain didn't just shape where humans lived, it may have quietly shaped the way humans learned to think. One of the biggest misconceptions about human evolution is that it only changed our bodies. We picture stronger muscles, larger brains, the ability to walk upright. But evolution also shaped the way we pay attention, the way we react to uncertainty, the way we experience the world. For hundreds of thousands of years, survival depended on noticing subtle changes in the environment, a sudden silence in the trees, a shift in the wind, dark clouds gathering on the horizon. These weren't just observations, they were information. The people who noticed those details were often the ones who survived long enough to pass those instincts to the next generation. That doesn't mean every emotion you feel during a storm is inherited from your ancestors. Human emotions are shaped by culture, personal experience, and biology working together. But it does mean your brain evolved in a world where rain was never just background noise. It was meaningful. That perspective changes something. Today, rain is usually separated from consequence. We watch it through windows, we complain about traffic, we wait for it to stop. Our ancestors couldn't afford that luxury. They had to accept that some things were beyond their control. The storm would come whether they were ready or not. The river would rise whether they wanted it to or not. The fire might survive, or it might not. Instead of trying to control nature, they learned to adapt to it. Modern psychology has reached a similar conclusion. One of the strongest predictors of resilience isn't controlling every situation. It's adapting to changing ones. Perhaps that's one of the oldest lessons rain has been teaching humanity all along. Not resistance, adaptation. So what does all of this mean for you? It means that the strange calm you sometimes feel during a storm isn't as strange as it seems. It may be your attention shifting back toward the environment your nervous system evolved to understand. It means that slowing down during rainy weather isn't always laziness. Sometimes it's the natural response of a brain that spent hundreds of thousands of years living by rhythms we no longer notice. It also means that many of the comforts we take for granted are incredibly new. Central heating, weather forecasts, waterproof clothing, electric lights, climate-controlled homes. For almost every generation that came before us, these things didn't exist. Rain entered every part of life. It determined travel, food, safety, sleep, conversation, even hope. The modern world has done something extraordinary. It has protected us from many of nature's hardships. But in doing so, it has also distanced us from experiences that shaped us for almost our entire history. Perhaps that's why storms still feel different. They interrupt the illusion that we are completely in control. For a few hours, the sky sets the schedule instead of us. Plans change. People stay home. The streets become quieter. The world slows down. And for a brief moment, life begins to move at a pace our ancestors would have recognized. Maybe that's why rain has inspired so much poetry, music, and reflection across cultures. Not because every civilization happened to romanticize storms, but because every civilization lived beneath the same sky, the same falling water, the same uncertainty. And despite all our technology, we still do. The next time rain taps against your window, try something different. Don't check your phone immediately. Don't rush to make it stop. Just listen. For a moment, imagine hearing that sound without a roof above your head. Imagine depending on a single fire that cannot go out. Imagine not knowing whether tomorrow's hunt will succeed. Imagine living in a world where every storm demanded patience instead of convenience. Then ask yourself one simple question. How much of that ancient world is still alive inside me? The answer is probably more than you think. Because while civilization has transformed almost everything around us, it has had only a few thousand years to do it. Evolution had hundreds of thousands. Your home belongs to the modern world. Your calendar belongs to the modern world. Your technology belongs to the modern world. But your brain still carries echoes of a much older one. And perhaps that's why, every time the sky opens up, something inside you becomes just a little quieter. Not because rain has changed, but because somewhere deep within you, it never stopped speaking.